All right, my friends, welcome back to the High Value Man Conversation. I have a wonderful guest, Miss Emily Freeman, a love and dating coach who empowers driven men to get what they want with their dating life. And we've had an amazing conversation already, just getting to know each other. And I'm really excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with you.
Yeah. So I'd love for the listeners to hear from you what it is that you do and how you got into the space and just get a little background on you.
Sure. I'm like, oh, that's a lifelong story, but
Mm,
I am a dating and attraction coach. I empower ambitious men to go
mm,
from confused to confident in their love lives because there are so many amazing men out there who have so much love to give and have so much potential when it comes to partnership, and so many women looking for men like you and like them. And so I have made it my mission to help men truly understand how to connect with themselves so they can connect with women.
ooh,
And I got into this, like I said, it's a bit of a lifelong story. I grew up actually in a pretty holistic family. My dad is an acupuncturist, MD. And so I went to my first meditation class when I was about 3 years old. And now I wasn't really aware of what was going on.
yeah.
And I would say, as a teenager growing up in a household like that, you're like, Dad, I'm not going to sit and think about nothing or try to
Right.
think about nothing. I'm going to go just be a stressed out
Do
teenager.
stuff. Yeah.
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 But as life progressed, as I got into my mid 20s, I went through a number of different things that led me back to better understanding how my mind worked, better understanding how to connect in partnership and how to become more secure within myself. First, starting with, you know, becoming a personal trainer and fitness coach in my early 20s.
Mm,
I call it my quarter life crisis, when I decided to just pack up and become a trainer, both in person and online. But what it really did was set me up to understand human motivation, human behavior, why we do certain things, why we don't do certain things,
mhm,
why we treat ourselves certain ways, the ways that we talk to ourselves, how it reflects in the things that we do on a daily basis.
mm,
And having gone through that, I also ended up getting injured, which created a lot of insecurity about, an imposter syndrome that came out.
mm,
And through that imposter syndrome, I was also simultaneously going through the end of two back-to-back breakups from long-term relationships.
mm,
First one being 5.5 years, the second one being about 2 years long, and found myself feeling pretty insecure about how I was showing up in relationship, how I was showing up, with my relationship, with my injury to, my identity was kind of wrapped up in fitness at the time, and gravitated towards better understanding how to feel good and how to be comfortable in my body and within myself, and found thought work, found mindset work, found
mm.
personal development, and found myself really digesting this work and feeling better. And then being in my late 20s going, I cannot wait to get back out into the dating world. This is going to be amazing. I know exactly what I want. This is it. The man is just around the corner. There's so
Mm.
many options. I'm so excited. This was like, I had been online before my that previous relationship, but he was the first guy I met online. So I'd really not had that much experience with it yet.
And when you say
Um,
online, like dating app online?
yes, dating
Okay,
apps.
cool.
Yes. Hinge, Bumble, The League. I
All
was
of it.
on them all.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I was so eager and so excited. And it didn't really turn out the way that I thought it was going to turn out. It was 2 dates or 3 dates or 2 months or
Mm,
3 months. And so I started to question why, right? Why was love harder for me to find? And I started diving into attachment theory and polarity, masculine and feminine energies, understanding communication, understanding the ways that we relate to each other and what it means to, truly have wounds come up in dating and to understand all of that. And I got myself to a pretty good place, but I recognized that there was still more to go because I didn't have that dream man yet.
mm,
And so I hired a coach for myself.
mm.
And her and I clicked immediately. And she absolutely changed my life. And in multiple ways, not just my amazing partnership that I'm in now, but also the business that I've been able to create from what I've learned.
Love
And
it.
through my work with her, I not only started to transform so rapidly, but people around me noticed. And my single friends, my friends in relationships, my married friends were coming to me asking me for advice on dating, on relationships, on love. And I started helping them with the information that I had gathered over a lifetime, and it was working. They
Mm.
started having better experiences, and they kept coming back for more and more and more information. And my coach was also giving me the little nudge, like,
Yeah,
this is
this is your
probably,
space. Yeah.
this is kind of your destiny, girl. Right. At the time I thought I would coach women. I thought that was kind of the natural direction that I felt inclined to go. But it was one day after actually being left at an Airbnb the morning that we got there with a man who I'd been seeing for a few months, who looked at me with so much pain in his eyes and told me he just couldn't do it.
Mm.
Had no explanation why. And I'd been told that in the past before, but this was the first time I really didn't blame myself. I really saw that there was something that he was limited in, and that there was fear. And I was walking on the beach. I was in Hermosa Beach at the time, and I was walking on the beach, and I just realized, I was like, men need this information. They need this type of help. There isn't a lot of it out there, right? A lot of dating for men focuses on surface level tactics, on
strategies, pickup
strategy,
lines.
because
Yeah.
that's tempting, right? I mean, like, who doesn't want to take a pill to look your best, or like,
Right.
like,
Right.
and so, and when you're thinking about like working out and fitness, right? So I realized that this message really needed to get out there to men, and that men were in a lot of pain and didn't have a place or resource to go to. And this man who I'm referring to was very into personal development. It wasn't that he didn't have a level of consciousness, but there was still a missing piece when it came to relating to women and to being in relationship. And I also know there are so many amazing women out there who are taking advice from dating coaches also, and good advice, right? Like myself, and then felt misunderstood in the process, because there is a lot of misunderstanding between men and women right now. And so that's why, part of my mission is also to help men understand women, and understand that these women are trying to relate to them, and there's great women out there, and to remind everybody that love is possible. That's one thing that I've never, ever, ever given up on in my life. Whether I was left high and dry at an Airbnb or was going through a major breakup after a 5.5-year relationship, I always believed that love was possible. And I want everyone else to believe that too. So.
Oh, what a beautiful story. And I love this, because it is the true hero's journey of taking your pain, turning it into your purpose, taking your suffering, turning it into your superpower. That is one of the biggest breakthroughs, is when you do the deep work on yourself, you find those golden threads that get to speak to everyone else on their journey. I love what you've done with your path.
Thank you so much.
So much to pull on here, and I wrote down a couple notes, but kind of probably the biggest thing that I want to give you credit for is what I believe is a good starting point for so many people. Fitness is the gateway. Fitness is the gateway.
Yes.
To personal development.
It is.
I know so many fitness coaches. I was a former fitness coach, gym owner, that go into this personal development space, because as a coach in that fitness space, you're helping them lose weight, burn fat, build muscle, but then you're also their therapist. And so you're hearing everything that happens Saturday, Sunday night, and you are that person, that resource. And so for so many people, if they don't know where to start, I always say that fitness is one of the best ways. And I love that that's been your story too.
I think also when you gravitate towards fitness because you have the type of mindset to want to be better.
Yeah.
And to know that you can be better and to be your best self. And sometimes that comes from an unhealthy place, and you get to turn it into a healthy relationship with that. But it definitely feeds into, okay, wait, actually, like, though, now that my body feels better, how do I make my mind feel better?
And emotions and heart. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
100%. You said something, it's in your tagline, the attraction coach, so that you can help them connect with themselves so they can connect with others.
Yes.
Can you elaborate just on that? And I want you to say it again, because I think that's so important for the listeners, especially my guys, to understand that connecting with someone else really begins first with connecting with themselves.
Sure. Yeah. If you don't understand yourself, if you don't understand the way your mind works, what lights you up, what triggers you, it's really hard to relate to somebody else. Because one, if you're not connecting with yourself, you're also not connecting with uncomfortable emotions. Usually that's when we're not connected with ourselves, right? It's easy to connect with ourselves when we're like, I'm on the top of the world and it feels so good. And we think that's connecting with ourselves. Like, yeah, I love myself. But how do you think about yourself when things aren't going your way, or when you're feeling insecure? That's actually your biggest opportunity for growth and learning to connect
Mm,
with yourself. If you continue to give that part of yourself, like dismiss it, right? And
mhm.
ignore it, distract from it, numb out
Repress
from
it.
it,
Yeah.
repress it,
Mhm.
you're going to feel threatened by someone else's emotional experience.
Mm,
And especially when we're talking about men and women, right? Which we can also look at, even though it's not, we all have both energies within us, as we know,
mhm,
but the masculine and the feminine, right? The feminine is that ocean energy.
mhm,
It's, my partner actually calls like so much ocean energy. I'm like, yep, and you love it.
mhm.
It's more open. It's there to receive and as the masculine to hold the structure for that in order to be able to do that, you can't be threatened by it. You have to recognize the beauty in it. And until you can recognize that beauty within yourself, it's going to feel really uncomfortable, right? I know that myself, I was in relationships where I felt like I was a project. I was trying to be fixed. And that to a woman can be so disempowering. And so by connecting with yourself, a couple of things, because we can go in a million different directions, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's so
It's
there's so
deep.
much good
Yeah,
stuff there. Yeah.
yeah.
But in connecting with yourself, another piece of that is, I hear a lot of men who aren't sure how to have engaging conversations with women. They get choked up, they stay surface level, or they start oversharing. And part of connecting with yourself is understanding who you are, what you need, what you desire, and then being able to get curious about those same things in the person across the dinner table from you or
Role,
wherever
role
you're
play
on
with
it.
role play with me for a second, because
Okay.
this is a tool. This is a tool, and it's pivotal from the standpoint of being able to connect with yourself when you're feeling insecure or feeling pain. That's really when we have
Mm-hmm.
the biggest opportunity to get curious about those feelings, so that we
For sure.
can not feel threatened by our person, by our woman's emotional experience. And so, how would this look inside the dynamic if you were coaching a guy
Mm-hmm.
and he was working through insecurity or fear or
Mm-hmm.
some type of feeling, and he didn't really know how to connect with himself? Because most guys, and this is from my coaching experience, a lot of guys were emotionally constipated. We were
Oh,
taught not to feel.
yeah,
And that is a very hard dynamic to enter into a relationship, where the feelings
sure.
are there, and we really only know maybe some level of happiness are good, but then it's irritation, frustration, anger, rage. Like, those are typical male
Mm-hmm.
emotions that are
Mm-hmm.
very easily defaulted. How would you get a guy to start connecting with himself when he's feeling insecure?
Right. So when you're feeling insecure, it's important to first recognize what thoughts are creating that insecurity.
Mm,
Because anytime you're feeling something, it's because you're thinking a certain thought or sets of thoughts creating that feeling. And it's usually a lot easier if you're not connected with your emotions to connect with your thinking first and
sure.
foremost. So looking at what limiting beliefs, what negative thoughts are coming up for you in that moment. Is it, I'm going to say something wrong, or, oh my gosh, like this woman, I have to make it work with her, or what a catch, like I'm only going to get this one shot, or it's been so hard to get to this point, I can't mess it up, or
Mm,
she's going to think that X, Y, and Z about my past is a deal
mhm,
breaker,
mhm,
right? Those thoughts are really important to pinpoint because they are creating your reality. They
mm,
create your emotion, which ultimately creates your energy. And both men and women are very sensitive to energies, but women especially, right? They're looking for that level of safety. So when there's inconsistency in who you are, they're not going to feel safe. So they're not going to relax and be able to be flirtatious and playful with you.
mhm,
So the first step is to understand your thinking, what's coming up for you. Then literally just magnify the thoughts, right?
mm,
One or multiple of them, and start to feel what's going on in you, right? Are you starting to clam up? Are you starting to sweat a little bit? Do you have a
mm.
pit in your stomach? Is your
So you're
chest feeling
saying magnify the negative thoughts,
like
so you feel the embodiment?
think about it, yes, and
Okay.
feel it. And then allow yourself to name it, right? What is it that you are feeling? You're like, oh, I feel kind of like sick to my stomach. Okay, what is that? What's that feeling to you? Oh, it's nervousness. It feels like I'm not good enough, right? Okay, cool. So that's coming from a place of feeling like you're not worthy of what it is that's
Mm,
in front of you. Like, let's get into that. Why do you think that? That leads to a whole other set of thoughts. Where did those thoughts come from?
mm,
We can
mhm,
start to look at where the origin created to recognize that it's not actually her
mhm.
creating that feeling in you. It's
Yeah.
your own. internal dialogue
Paradigm.
about
Yeah.
what's going on. Yeah. And so that helps you get in touch with yourself to recognize that your external world is really just a projection of your internal.
Yes.
And so getting in touch with that allows you then to shape the reality that you want,
Right. Because you
right?
first have to identify what's not working, build
Mm-hmm.
awareness around those
Mm-hmm.
limiting beliefs or old behaviors or habits so that you can re-identify and rewrite.
Yes.
Can I read this back to you? What I got here, it's kind of a breaking,
Sure. Yeah,
yeah,
go for it.
like a breaking free activity for any of the
Yes.
guy listeners out there that are feeling insecurity, low confidence, or this anxiousness that comes up in the dating. First and foremost, if you're having a hard time distinguishing the emotions, we start to distinguish the thoughts first. And
Mm-hmm.
so as men, we can typically figure our thoughts are. And then what you're suggesting is to amplify the thought so much, the negative cycle in the brain, so that you actually feel it and embody the feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then use that physical feeling, that physicality to start doing the detective work. Where is this really
Yes.
coming from?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then the important piece of that is to hold space for the feeling, to
Yes.
actually sit there with it and to get curious about it, right? That's part of the embodiment
Yeah.
work, to really get curious about it instead of running from it. Because if you, like, I
Mm.
say this time and time again, but it's just so true. I remember recognizing it within myself is we fear a certain outcome, right? You fear that the date's not going to go well. You
Mm.
fear that you're not going to be with her. You fear that you're going to be alone forever, not necessarily because of the actual physical outcome itself, but how it's going to make you feel.
Mhm.
And so, you're worried about the feeling of rejection, of not being good enough, of, feeling like you are just not worthy of what it is that you
Sure.
desire. You're never going to get it. And when you start to recognize that when you can face any single emotion that comes your way,
Mm.
you become fearless
Mhm.
because it doesn't matter. You know that you actually get to decide what thoughts you're thinking. So if a woman does decide she doesn't want to date you, you don't have to take it as rejection. You
Mhm.
can decide to think whatever you want about it. Because actually her rejection, and I put that in quote marks for anybody just listening, is not really rejection at all. It's a projection of her own stories.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's, growing up as a dancer, my mom always told me selection, not rejection.
Mm.
Um, because there's a lot of selection that happens when you're a dancer or in theater or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
It's a numbers game too, to a certain extent. It is, need to spend enough time on dates, getting to know you, how you show up and what you're looking for. And you're not going to find the first date. And so you need to make
mhm,
sure that you're actively out there, knowing what you're looking for. And really, I think going into the dating space too, with your core values and being
yes.
clear on what it is you're looking for. So many people
hmm
settle in a relationship because they haven't gotten clear on that beforehand. I
hmm
love this. So you touched on something. I'm pulling so much good conversation pieces from this. And guys, I hope you're listening from the standpoint of how do you really build your worth? And
yeah.
at the root of this, what I hear so much fear and insecurity, and this is my coaching experience. A lot of the men that I work with, and I know from my own personal development and healing that it's a feeling of low sense of self-worth, not feeling good enough.
hmm
If you were going to give a suggestion to the men that are listening, that are in the dating space, that are doing this exercise, breaking free, getting more understanding of their emotions, getting curious about themselves, and they get to the root cause of this sense of low self-worth, how would you guide them into building more worth?
Yeah. Well, it starts by first changing your thoughts and deciding to think new thoughts. So I take them through a specific framework and process to be able to first understand what would this look like if I had a neutral thought
Mm,
instead, right? A thought that I can't argue, right? That has no positive or negative
mm,
charge. Because when we all of a sudden start to give ourselves mantras and think more positively when we've been having such low vibration thoughts, it can feel really forced. It can feel really fake. So you have
mm,
to first decide, or you have to allow your brain to decide that what it thinks isn't necessarily true. And this can be a little bit tricky because of what's called confirmation bias.
mm,
So
mhm,
our brain, we all have ego. We all want to be right, right? That's how our brain survives, is really believing that what you think is true. And so you first have to recognize that you're deciding what your
mm,
truth is. And that's being reflected in your experiences because confirmation bias is so powerful that it will literally tell you, tell your brain, tell you to look for evidence that your thoughts are true.
Mm,
So you will see little pieces of evidence, right? If all women play games, if the dating world is broken, you
mm,
are going to
mm,
notice every single
mm,
time a woman plays games or you feel like she is.
mhm,
Even if she's not, right? She might be moving slowly. She might
mhm,
be getting to know you. She might,
mhm.
who knows what's going on in her life. But if you decide that all women play games, you're going to interpret that as games.
Right.
And so confirmation bias will continue to show you evidence. And it's so powerful that if you see something contrary, right? She's like, no, I'm not playing games. I was really just like, I'm busy, right?
Uh-huh.
Your brain will hold on even tighter to the original thought.
Oh, wow.
So, in order to release that, you have to
Mm,
make a conscious effort to decide just because I think it doesn't make it true. And then start reprogramming it from the negative to a more neutral to ultimately going to the thinking, the positive thinking that you want. And you'll start to notice you guys can try this on. Start thinking about a certain type of car that you would love to buy, right?
mhm.
Not necessarily like the most rare exotic car if you're a car guy.
Sure.
But think about like your dream car. If your dream car, like I said, if it's really rare, maybe like your other dream car,
Sure.
you will start to see that car
Let's go.
everywhere,
Yeah.
right? Or I mean, pick like a dog you want, right?
Uh-huh.
So pick a dog that you want. You will start seeing that breed of dog
Mhm.
everywhere, and not just on Google or Facebook if they like are
Sure.
listening,
Yeah.
retargeting you. I
They're
mean, out
always
in real life.
listening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
That
So
reticular activating system, right? The part of your
yes,
brain. Yes. Yeah.
yes.
I love this.
So, in order to get to a new reality in dating, you have to first take yourself through the process of creating a new internal reality.
Mm.
And so that's the process that we start with.
Creating a new internal reality by first identifying the negative emotions and thoughts that are coming up, and
Hmm.
then getting neutral first, creating a framework of
Yes.
what would this look like if this was neutral, and then
Yeah.
taking on the more positive. I love that
Okay.
because that's a step that is so often skipped in the personal development space, from the
Hmm.
standpoint of everyone's like, just think positive thoughts, go
Hmm.
affirmations, go all in on positivity. But you're right, it feels like a lie sometimes. It feels like an
Yeah.
absolute lie. Hmm.
Hmm. And there's the saying, "Fake it till you make it." But I think that being able to have the neutral thought, right, which would look like, if you're thinking all women play games, it could be some women play games or some women
Mm,
don't play games, right? That's a neutral thought.
yeah.
You can then start to try that on. And some men move through that really quickly, depending on how deep rooted the
Mm.
belief is. If it's more surface level, then you can move through that really quickly to get to the positive. Or if it's something that you need to continue to work through and to keep experiencing that uncomfortable emotion and that uncomfortable feeling, it can take a little bit longer. And a great measure of your internal world is your external world.
Yeah, isn't that the
Hmm.
truth, right? If you're not
Hmm.
getting the results you're looking for in the outside, it begins with you, because you are the
Yeah.
opportunity, you are the author, you are the creator of everything. I love
Hmm.
that. One thing I want to touch on before we segue to a completely different topic,
Hmm.
the piece of commitments. And as you shared a bit about your dating journey and being able to see uh, a disconnection between guys that wanted to commit but they didn't really fully commit. What's kind of
Hmm.
the root of that? If you were
Yeah.
to put that up, why do guys have a hard time committing?
Well, I think men and women in our world today have a harder time committing than ever
Mm,
for a number of reasons. But that doesn't mean it's not possible, right? You get to decide what you focus on. And I think part of it is online dating
mm,
and social media. And it's a blessing. And it's also
mhm,
something that can create more complexity in our lives. Like I said, I loved online dating and I love it for my clients. You really are able to cast a wider net and meet women that you wouldn't otherwise from your couch, right?
sure.
And so you also have one less barrier to entry because you both know you're there for a dating purpose. You're not, going on her Instagram and trying to create something from that or meeting her in person. So it's one less barrier to entry. So you're able to overcome that one more qualifying step of if she's available or if she's interested in dating. But on the other hand, we have more opportunities than ever to meet people. And this can create what I like to call shiny object syndrome in
Mhm,
dating, which is this desire to go, oh, but maybe there's something better. Maybe there's something better. Maybe
mm,
there's something better. And with everyone's highlight reels online, we also can go down that route, right?
sure.
We're like,
Yeah,
how
the
do I
grass
make
is
my life?
greener.
Yes. How do I make my life like this? How do I make my life like that? Now, an even more important piece of this, though, is I think commitment has been something that a lot of people have struggled with, but maybe not shown on the surface, because marriage commitment used to be something that was much more like required of us in the past. It was expected. And I think we're at a place where we're now choosing that commitment, and choosing marriage, which is so beautiful, because it also means that you have the opportunity to choose somebody who is going to be compatible with you and who's going to enhance your life and really make it even better. But that also means that there's a lot of confusion around what that looks like. And it's especially confusing if you have an insecure attachment style. So I talk a lot about attachment theory and attachment style because it was the big light bulb that went off in my life of, oh my gosh, all the like seemingly, illogical behaviors are actually extremely logical, and have a root to them. And it's actually patterns that we see in humans overall. And so one reason why commitment can be so hard for men and for some people is if they have a underlying fear of intimacy, if they have an underlying fear of abandonment, or if they have an underlying fear of rejection, which all create these different patterns, usually self-sabotaging patterns, that either attract them to emotional unavailability, so they don't get the commitment that they desire, or actually have them not feel attracted towards emotional availability, right? So they get close to a woman, start to pick out little flaws in her, or what they think are flaws or reasons why the relationship wouldn't work out, and start creating some strategies to deactivate from the relationship to put space between the two of you.
You said there's three, right? And just to confirm, there was intimacy, abandonment. There was one more attachment.
Intimacy, abandonment, and rejection. So you can look at it from the lens of, so there's really four main types of attachment styles. There's the secure attachment, anxious, avoidant, and then anxious avoidant, or what's also called a fearful avoidant. And so someone with more anxious attachment, or I like to say anxious tendencies, right? I don't like to label anybody. I really encourage the men that I work with to just take pieces and not necessarily need to label themselves, but they can label the behaviors, right? So this is an anxious tendency, this is an avoidant tendency, and have that own self-discovery. So someone with anxious tendencies tends to have a fear of abandonment, right? They want a lot of closeness. They want a lot of reassurance. They feel really anxious when they aren't in constant communication, because ultimately they have a story that they're too much, that they're going to be left. Someone with more avoidant tendencies has a fear of intimacy. They feel like partnership is going to lead to engulfment. They're going to lose their autonomy, their freedom. And someone who has more fearful avoidance has a fear of rejection. So they're going to be looking out for any signs that someone might leave them and create reasons for them to leave before the other person can. So, and then a secure attacher is somebody who is comfortable with intimacy, comfortable with conflict, and can have really amazing close relationships.
There was a book that I read with my partner not too long ago, Wired for Love, that describes these as the wave, the anchor, and the shore, kind of describing these attachment theories from the standpoint of the steadiness, like the beach, and then the wave being kind of anxious and relatively unpredictable, and then the anchor being the secure style. One thing that I did pulled from that book was that we can go through different seasons and different relationships of each of these attachment styles based on where we are in our personal development, and also how the coupleship brings up a new trigger or pain inside of us. And so it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very common to rotate between, especially the anxious and the avoidant, because ultimately both people have an underlying subconscious attraction to unavailability. And so what happens is when someone available comes into the picture, can flip-flop it, because someone with more anxious tendencies has a conscious fear of abandonment, but a subconscious fear of intimacy. So if there's no threat on that fear of abandonment, then their fear of intimacy comes up and they can act more in avoidance, or what looks like avoidance, and then vice versa for someone who has more of an avoidant tendency.
Okay, so it's a subconscious attraction to unavailable emotions.
Someone who's unavailable. So that can be physical unavailability, which usually is emotional unavailability, ultimately. So like someone who's in a relationship, someone who lives far away where there's a lot of obstacles to overcome, someone who tells you they're not ready for a relationship, someone who's not truly giving you all of themselves. That can all be unavailability. And ultimately it puts you into a partnership, a relationship, a situationship where you don't feel like your needs are being met. And instead
Mm,
of recognizing that that's never going to change, there's a little trigger that goes off that goes, what do I do to overcome this and make
mm,
myself feel like I have the ultimate accomplishment of
wow.
allowing someone who's so unavailable to fall in love and open themselves up to me?
Mhm.
So,
And
mhm.
that's ultimately a fear of getting close at the root of that.
Correct. Yes. There
Yeah.
is a fear, like someone with more anxious tendencies truly feels like there's something intrinsically wrong with them and feels
Mm,
like when someone gets too close, they're going to leave them. And somebody who has more avoidant tendencies thinks they're going to completely lose themselves in relationship. And it's because they both don't have strong boundaries, both
yeah.
internal and external. And so they're not able to ask for their needs to be met in a really effective way that allows for more closeness, right? When we understand how to communicate our needs, we actually
Mhm.
create deeper intimacy
Right.
and a better partnership versus holding it all in and then creating conflict.
Right. I love this. Guys, we can go much deeper on these topics. And I know Emily could take it there as well, but I want to respect her time. And there's a couple pieces that I want to ask on this because I want to bring it much more to what you do and how you help guys get there. Because
Sure.
this is depth. This is the depth in the coaching, and you're giving a snapshot into the type of work you help these guys work through. I love that.
Mhm.
But high level, what is some kind of entry level dating advice that you might give to a guy that
Sure.
is maybe struggling in a space
Yeah.
that would help him get some easy wins and start understanding a little more before he's ready to fully bite the bullet and say, yes, I want to start coaching with you.
Yeah. First and foremost, it's understanding you're qualifying her
Mm,
and what to look for. I see so many men who tell themselves, if I could just get a woman like
mm,
that, if I could just get a woman like that. But if you make a woman a prize, then you're no longer focused on connecting and she is something to be achieved
mm,
versus someone to be connected with. And this ultimately takes you off of the same playing field. And now you are trying to win her over. You start to try to impress her. You second guess everything you say and do. You're overthinking. And you're not truly showing up as your authentic self in that instance. You're showing up in your wounding. So always remember that you are also there to understand if she's right for you
ooh,
and to start looking at, okay, getting clarity first and foremost around what it is that you want in partnership. Who
mm,
is this woman? What do you need in order to feel supported, to feel safe, to feel excited about somebody? And to start to look at her and recognize that she's another human being, right? Sitting across the table from you. She has her own insecurities, her own what she deems as flaws, and to start getting curious about how she can show up for you. And that's not to say to just like write women off either, but to allow yourself to recognize that you're not there to win her, you're there
mhm.
to connect with her.
Right, right. And I think that's stepping into the dating space, knowing your value, knowing that you bring
100%.
so much to the table, and so much of your content you talk about attracting the high value woman. To attract a high value woman, you have to also be a high value man. Know
Yeah.
that you bring something to the table that is absolutely just as valuable, as exciting, as creative, as purposeful as she does. And it's not
Hmm.
putting her on a pedestal. Although we
Hmm.
want to honor our women, it is literally two
Sure.
people coming together to interview
Yes.
each other to see if they've got the right bonds to come together.
Yeah. She doesn't want to be on the pedestal. That's a
Yeah,
lot of pressure, right?
yeah,
There are a lot of men who project an image of who they think this woman is onto her.
mm,
And I guys can tell you guys, it feels like, oh my gosh, I have to live up to this level of perfection that he is now projecting onto me.
mm,
And, she wants to be able to feel like you understand that she's also a human who
yeah.
wants to connect with you and to give her that structure to feel safe doing that. So yeah, no, when you start to notice yourself projecting stories about who she could be, take yourself back to the present moment and ask yourself, no, wait, actually, what do I already know about her? And what else do I want to learn?
Mm. I love that. Getting curious. That's one of
Hmm.
the best dating tools and relationship tools is stay curious about your person.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Beginner's mind. Hmm.
Okay, I want to spend the last little bit of this talking about masculine and feminine polarity. I know that's
Okay.
topic that you are very experienced in, and I'd love for you high level to describe it to our listeners. It's very intuitive to understand at the base, but I think most guys don't fully understand that there's a masculine and a feminine energy that lives in both of us,
Yes.
and really how that is so essential to having a dance together for there to be attraction.
Yeah. Polarity is ultimately talking about that, opposites attract like magnets.
Mhm.
And when you look at attachment theory, opposites can attract from an unhealthy place, right? When two people can't meet each other's needs and actually trigger each other's fears. Something called the anxious avoidant trap is how that's labeled. But when you look at masculine and feminine energy, this is a way that you can create polarity naturally as yourself in dating without tactics, without game playing,
Mm.
because those ultimately are triggering her insecurities. And a lot of these tactics and games will help you attract a woman who is not going to be a good match for you long term, who may even, not be able to show up in partnership in the way that you desire. And it's going to deter the woman who is emotionally available, who's ready. But when you're able to integrate into your masculine energy and also honor your feminine energy, you create that polarity, that attraction naturally with a woman in a way that's really healthy and fun and dynamic. And so, when you look at the masculine and feminine, as I said previously, we all have both energies within us. It's important to recognize that each person has a core energy. It's where you feel most natural, most
Mhm.
confident. And like I said, it's not gender related, but it is said that about 80% of men have core masculine energy and 80% of women have core feminine energy.
Mm.
And so I walk men through both understanding how to pinpoint their own core energy and also how to pinpoint what energy their ideal or their dream woman would be in also.
Mm.
I hear a lot of men talk
Interesting.
about dating women who feel guarded, who feel aloof, who, don't feel that have that nurturing side of them, but are drawn to them because they feel like they're really solid in knowing what they want. They come on really strong to men. They lead the
Ah.
process a little bit, and so then men feel like they're getting the affirmation. They're relying on that more versus actually leading the process. So it's really important to also go, okay, what type of partner do I want? And that's not to
Mm.
say that women with any percentage of masculine or feminine, that one's better than the other. It's just a matter of what do you truly desire? And are those desires coming from a true desire for connection? And that's how you want to connect with a woman. Or is it coming from a need for affirmation? Meaning,
Wow.
do you want a woman who's also initiating communication because you are worried about being dragged on? Are you worried about actually being rejected? Are you worried about putting yourself out there and that feels like the easier route?
Oof.
Or is it because that's what you actually want?
Yeah.
So, really important to look at. Yeah,
Can we
yeah, go
pause?
ahead.
Okay, let me
Yeah,
pause there for just a
pause.
second. Only because there's so much you're hitting on, and this really does speak to so much about what I coach in, and the PAM problem, the passive aggressive
Yes.
man. And I know we both read Dr. Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Yes.
And I'm a recovering nice guy. I've spent probably the last 10 years really focusing on nice guy symptoms. I was the bad boy nice guy for a while, and I was the overly nice guy. And I'm trying to calibrate in the middle.
Love it.
And the what I found so much with the guys that I coach is they often end up with very strong, powerful, independent women that
Mhm.
are desperately wanting to step into their feminine, wanting to be
Yes.
led, but the
Yeah.
guys just don't know how. So they take the passive route. They go
Yes.
passive with everything from setting the tone, taking the lead, date nights, just anything in regards to just letting her take charge. And then they get
Mhm.
frustrated when they try to recalibrate that masculinity.
Yes.
How do
Yes.
you coach this? Because it's a symptom right now. There's a lot of these guys out there
Mhm.
that are really struggling to stay grounded in the masculine, that are struggling to really be the men that they know they're meant to be deep down. That's why there's so many men's groups out there just helping to revitalize, the men's
Mhm.
movement. But where do you coach the guys on this? And
Yeah.
how do you challenge them and call them forward in a way that protects their
Mhm.
ego and their masculinity, but also
Mhm.
allows them to step up?
Yeah. Well, I love that you see a lot of what I see also. And the men get frustrated, the women are frustrated
Yeah.
too, because she's waiting. She's
Yeah.
waiting for you to lead. And especially, I always say the more driven the woman is, the more focused she is, the more driven, focused you have to be, right?
Mm,
So you want to match that. She's not making all these decisions for dating because she wants to, but she's doing it because she feels like that's the only way it's going to get done.
mm,
And so she is hoping that you will step up in that. And you're going to feel a lot better when you do. You're going to feel empowered. You're
yes.
not going to feel like, "Oh my gosh, we have to go and do this again," like, or
Yeah, yeah.
she needs me to do this. It's not going to come from a place of obligation. She's not going to feel like a checklist to you anymore.
Mm,
It's going to feel like you're living from your desires. So the
mm,
first thing that's so important is
mm.
to look at, what is your relationship to the masculine? What have been those role models for you? What stories do
Ooh,
you have about it? And what stories do you have about it when it relates to women? Right? How do you believe that women want to be treated in relationship? And is that actually true? Or is that a projection of your own belief system onto women
powerful.
or somebody else's? And start looking at those stories, because I can tell any man, you need to be more assertive in the way that you're
Mm,
communicating with her. I see a lot of men who are like, "I don't like, do you want to do this? Like, whatever you want, like, happy to make it happen." And they think they're being helpful, and they truly have good intent. But to a woman, it's like, she's hoping that maybe you'd make a decision so that way she feels led in that situation.
mm,
And it's not about picking the perfect restaurant for her, especially if you just started dating her, right? You don't know this woman well enough to know what her favorite restaurant is yet,
mhm.
unless she told you at some point in time. So pick the restaurant you want to share with her, right? Start living from your own desires. But I can tell you that, but until you've actually reprogrammed your thought process and your subconscious to be able to step into that, there's going to be a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
You're going to continue to want to go back to the people pleasing behavior, the
Mm,
impressing, and it might last in the beginning. But the point of all this work that we're doing is so you can have a lasting partnership,
mhm.
not just date her, but actually be with her and continue to show up consistently in that. So that way your relationship can continue to grow and expand, not get sidelined by you becoming something completely different once you're in it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you said something that is so profound, but the men will feel better when they step into that space, when they step into the
Yes.
leading, being more assertive. It just has not been something that's been taught. Most men don't have a healthy model of masculinity. So we think about
Hmm.
how they have been taught to relate to women. Either the strong mom, I was raised by a single mom. She was very
Yep.
strong, independent, powerful, a big personality. She had to do it all. And all of the father figures had to be were very passive in their nature. And so those were the lessons taught. And I see that taught so
Hmm.
much to men these days.
Hmm.
Men, it's your responsibility to get better at leading, loving, and showing up in the world, and
Hmm.
really learning how to step into your masculine in love, which I know you have a
Yes.
lot you can speak on. And I wanted to segue into your course that you've got coming out
Hmm.
for the masculine in love. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited about this course because it's really built on the principles and concepts that I've already used to help hundreds of men get everything they desire in love and completely transform and be able to step into that masculine energy and feel empowered in it and
Mm,
build authentic confidence and ultimately get their dream woman. So this course is really takes you through the process of what we started talking about, of the reprogramming, of identifying what's truly been holding you back, and then start to take you into reprogramming it and transcending your subconscious programming, to then identifying what it is that you actually want or desire
oh,
in partnership and getting clarity around that. I see so many men confuse traits for qualities and values when they're starting to make their list around women. A
mm,
good example that I like to use is, when you say you want a woman who goes to the gym, it's more important why she goes to the gym versus if she goes, right? A woman who
mhm,
goes to the gym just to keep a certain physique might have a completely different set of values than a woman who's going for longevity, for mental health. And so it might be a combination of all of those different
mhm.
values and qualities that you're looking for, but it's important to get really clear on it, especially if you're the type of guy who's like, "I want a woman who has this specific routine down," right? I see a lot of like men who get sometimes too specific around, "I need her to come from a family that, or where the parents are not divorced." And it's
Mm,
like, okay, but why?
mm,
Right? Because
mhm.
ultimately you might be qualifying women on certain things that you could actually be missing out on a woman that's exactly what it is that you're looking for, because you're
Yeah,
confusing traits for qualities and values. So
I
anyways, we
love
get
that.
clarity on that. you also learn how to become an energetic match for what it is that you desire. So, like you said, to get a high value woman, you want to step into becoming a high value man.
Mm,
And so, I actually sent out my newsletter yesterday defining what it means to be high value, because I get that question a lot.
mm,
And it is a combination both of universal traits that make somebody a great partner, and then more unique traits that make them a great partner for you. And so,
beautiful.
getting clarity on that so you can step into becoming an energetic match for her. A lot of the work that happens in this course, also in the work I do, is around law of attraction, manifestation,
Mm,
right? Being able to attract what it is into your life based on the thoughts you think, the energy that you present. So we go into getting into clarity, and then we talk about how to date her. So exactly how to lead the dating process, how to both date online and in person, right? More of those strategies around online dating and setting up the date, leading the date, where to meet women or high value women, and ultimately how to lead the dating process and build polarity. And so there's also whole bunch of lessons on the masculine and the feminine and what that looks like in the dating arena to ultimately allow you to build that lasting attraction, right? Not
love
just something that lasts a little while, right? As you guys know, my story, it was like
it. Mhm.
attraction, halt, right? Whether it be me or the other person. And so it's really important to create that lasting polarity. So, how to authentically step into that. And then there's a whole bunch of bonuses on there too. I'm so excited about these visualizations that I'm putting in there, and how to date multiple women. That's
Mm,
something that a lot of men are not sure if they want to do that. And if they do, how to do it from a place of integrity. So you're staying in your
mhm.
masculine energy in that. And also, how to stay motivated in dating is another one of the bonuses there, because it can be really disheartening out there. But I'm so excited for this course. You're also going to join an amazing community of other men who are enrolled in this course or any of my coaching programs for support and accountability, where you guys can check in there. And I have a VIP upgrade option where you can get 4 calls with me in an amazing, powerful container where you can actually get more customized feedback from me and coaching from me as you go through the course. So that's also an option for you. And of course, there's worksheets, there's different exercises for you to do, action steps for every single one of the lessons,
Mm.
along with a video teaching.
Awesome. Well,
Mhm.
listeners, get in on that. We went just surface level on so many amazing topics, from attachments theory, masculine, feminine polarity, how to date well, how to date with integrity, how to step in your space, how to hold a good container for a relationship, what to look for. So much good stuff. And Emily, I really appreciate this conversation. And I know that our listeners can follow you on your Instagram, Emily
Mhm.
Freeman Coaching, and
Yes.
your website as well. Is there
Mhm.
anywhere else that they should be looking for your content?
I am on YouTube now, so you can
Awesome.
follow my YouTube, also Emily Freeman Coaching, Twitter, and also on LinkedIn if you guys wanted to join me there. I'm all over the place. Also, if you do want to create a more intimate relationship, you want to sign up for my email list, get my newsletter. That's where I do more long form content where I can really get more into the details of things for you guys in email format. And then also join the private community. I have a free private community with a whole bunch of other driven men who are also searching for a better connection with themselves to create that lasting connection with their dream woman. So
Love it.
people, mhm.
I got one last question for you,
Yeah.
and I ask all my guests, a man of value is, if you'll fill in that sentence.
Ooh, a man of value is a man who shows the same respect to himself that he does to everybody else.
Beautiful, beautiful. Friends, this was a wonderful episode with this awesome guest, Emily Freeman. And if you enjoyed this episode, please do us both a favor. Give us a follow on the Instagram, on the YouTube, and all the channels. Share this with a guy that needs to hear this in the dating space. Go follow her content. Make sure you subscribe to her newsletter, and make sure you leave us a 5-star rating. We'd really appreciate that. And Emily, thank you again for hopping on the
Thank
show.
you.
And I look forward to continuing this conversation down the road. Much love, many blessings. Boom.